International Shugden Community, which is a not-for-profit organisation registered in the United States. Tonight I want to explain a little bit about the history of this issue and why we're demonstrating and how we hope to resolve the situation. I've only got 10 minutes and quite a lot to say, so I'm afraid I'm going to be quite direct and possibly a little blunt. Sorry about that, please bear with me. Also, I'd like to make quite clear that we're not here to argue. We very much want to move towards a resolution to this issue. We have tried to establish a dialogue on this with the Dalai Lama and his representatives for nearly 20 years. So even though they're not here, maybe this is a step in that direction, who knows. So as you'll be aware, we hold the Dalai Lama responsible for the discrimination experienced by Shugden Buddhists. We believe he is the source of this problem and the only one able to solve it. So by demonstrating, we're asking the Dalai Lama to change. So I presume everyone here knows that during the demonstrations, we asked the Dalai Lama to stop lying and give religious freedom. And I want to explain why we say those things. So when we say stop lying, what are the lies that we are referring to? So specifically, we're referring to things the Dalai Lama said in the speech that instigated the ban on the worship of the enlightened deity Dorje Shugden, and that caused the social exclusion of Shugden Buddhism. So I'll talk about the ban more in a moment. In that specific speech in spring 1996, he said that people worshipping Shugden harms his life, harms Tibetan people, harms Tibetan independence. So you can read the Kashag statement, May 31st, 1996. It's available on the Dalai Lama's own website. His approved translation of it. So it says, the essence of His Holiness's advice is this: propitiating Dogyal does great harm to the cause of Tibet. It also imperils the life of the Dalai Lama. Now in this statement, the cause of Tibet refers to restoring the freedom of their country. So this statement by the Dalai Lama is at the root of the discrimination Shugden Buddhists have endured for the past 20 years. So I question whether any reasonable person could really believe that the reason the Chinese invaded Tibet is because of some people praying to Dorje Shugden. I would question whether any reasonable person could really believe that the reason the Chinese continue to occupy Tibet is because of some people praying to Dorje Shugden. And I don't think any reasonable person really believes the Dalai Lama's life is in danger if people continue to follow their teacher's advice by praying to Dorje Shugden. So I would say none of these statements are true, and when we say stop lying, these are the statements we're referring to. The Dalai Lama saying these things is completely irresponsible. They are so obviously inflammatory, it would be impossible to say anything more emotive to a refugee community desperate to return to their homeland. With this speech, from one day to the next, he turned Shugden Buddhists from valued members of the community into pariahs, into traitors, into enemies of the state. The social exclusion that followed from this was entirely predictable, and sadly, the Dalai Lama has done nothing to stop this. Immediately after this speech, the private office of the Dalai Lama communicated his words throughout the Tibetan community, and within weeks, letters were pouring in from charitable organizations supposedly working for the welfare of all Tibetans, saying that they had purged their membership of any Shugden worshippers and in future would not allow any Shugden worshippers in their organizations. So again, I brought lots of letters, but there's one on the Dalai Lama's own website with his own approved translation, so I'll quote from that. It's from the Tibetan Youth Congress resolution. I'll read out points 8 and 9. So point 8, if anyone in the Youth Congress membership is found as still worshipping Dogyal, that member will be immediately expelled from the Tibetan Youth Congress membership. And 9, this Congress will also urge all other Tibetan organizations not to enroll anyone into their membership who venerates and worships Dogyal. So that is clear discrimination on the basis of religion. It is published on the Dalai Lama's own website. It's still there, you can check it tonight if you like. Has he said even one word to stop this discrimination? So out of blind faith in the Dalai Lama, believing what he said to be literally true, non-Shugden practitioners got extremely angry with Shugden Buddhists and tried to force them to give up their faith, or tried to force them out of the Tibetan community. Statues and shrines were destroyed, people were threatened and publicly humiliated, refused basic services like treatment in medical clinics and service in shops. So this obviously leads to the other thing that we chant, which is give religious freedom. So I'd like to quote from the United Nations Declaration on the Elimination of All Forms of Intolerance and Discrimination based on Religion or Belief. So this says, no one shall be subject to coercion which would impair his freedom to have a religion or belief of his choice. No one shall be subject to discrimination by any state, institution, group of persons, or person on the grounds of religion or other beliefs. Discrimination between human beings on grounds of religion or belief constitutes an affront to human dignity and a disavowal of the principles of the Charter of the United Nations, and shall be condemned as a violation of the human rights and fundamental freedoms proclaimed in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The ostracism of Shugden Buddhists that began with the Dalai Lama's speech in 1996 intensified in 2008 when he instigated a vote to completely segregate the monastic communities. This vote was mirrored in the lay community, and Shugden Buddhists were made outcasts from their community. Monks, nuns, and lay people took oaths not to have any spiritual or material relationship with Shugden Buddhists. French journalists who documented this called it apartheid in Buddhist land. Some of the Dalai Lama supporters say that Shugden Buddhists do have religious freedom because no one is stopping them practice. However, Shugden Buddhists know that if they practice openly, they'll be immediately branded an enemy of the Dalai Lama, a traitor to the Tibetan cause, that they will face financial ruin because their shops will be boycotted, that they face social exclusion, that their parents, partners, or children may sever all ties with them because they believe that in doing so they are fulfilling the Dalai Lama's wishes. So I think that's very clear that that is not the religious freedom the United Nations Declaration is calling for. The Dalai Lama has exerted as much pressure, as much coercion on them as he possibly can, from the initial emotional blackmail of saying, unless you give up your prayers, I will die, through to convincing his supporters that it is Shugden Buddhists' fault that Tibet isn't free, through to standing idly by while Tibetan society is completely segregated in his name. This is behaviour that would be unacceptable from any ordinary politician, let alone the most famous Buddhist monk in the world. I mentioned the ban on Dori Shugden worship earlier on, so even today, some people question whether there is a ban. So again, I'd like to quote from the Dalai Lama's own website. This is his own approved translations. So from point 6 of the Assembly of Tibetan People's Deputies, this is the resolution June 96, again, it's online now, you can check it. It says, in forbidding the propitiation of Shugden, His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama is following the intention of Guru lineage. So that sentence seems to me to have a subject, a verb, an object. The subject is His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama, the verb is forbidding, the object is the propitiation of Shugden. So also from DalaiLama.com, the Tibetan Youth Congress resolution, point 7, says, together with documents pertaining to this ban on the worship of Dogyal, this Congress will urge and so forth. So if there isn't a ban on Dori Shugden, what is this resolution referring to? Again, remember, you can read this on his own website. Okay, so another argument some people present is that the existence of Shugden and Sepon monasteries shows that there is no ban in the Tibetan community. In fact, since the segregation of the monasteries, although they are geographically within the Tibetan community, spiritually, socially, and materially, they have been completely separated. Some people say they have their own separate monasteries, but separate is not equal, and they are treated as outcasts, not allowed into libraries, health clinics, shops, and temples that are open to the non-Shugden monks. They are not allowed to make offerings to non-Shugden monasteries or shrines, take part in the traditional religious ceremonies, and the non-Shugden people are not allowed to support them. So to resolve this issue, we would request everyone, especially those of you who care about the Dalai Lama's image and reputation, to ask the Dalai Lama to accept the following 4 points. To allow anyone who wishes to practice Dori Shugden the freedom to do so, to stop completely the discrimination against Shugden practitioners, to allow all Shugden monks and nuns who have been expelled to return to their monasteries and nunneries, and to receive the same material and spiritual rights as non-Shugden practitioners, to write to Tibetan communities throughout the world telling them that they should apply practically the above 3 points. So the moment this happens, all our demonstrations will finish. I don't think any of those requests are unreasonable. We simply want these people to have genuine and complete religious freedom. If that happens, all of our protesting is finished. So I was billed, that's my speech, I was billed to talk on a different topic. I hope you weren't disappointed that I changed it. If you are interested, we have plenty of these leaflets. Refuting Lama, How He Chose to False Dalai Lama, that has the essential points of the talk that I was billed to be giving. This felt a little bit more meaningful in the context. Okay, thank you very much for your time.